Howdy, this is Jim, and I'm in Leander, Texas, riding on my way back home to Austin, and this video is going to be a short review of the audio version of the book No Easy Day, the first-hand account of the mission to kill bin Laden. By the author's name on the book is Mr Owen. His real name is Matt Bissonnette, a retired SEAL who participated in the raid on Obama. The raid on Obama, excuse me, I'm sorry, the raid on Osama. Mr. Owen, well, I'll just call him Mr. Owen for the purposes of this review, wrote a controversial book. The SEAL community is not happy that he wrote this and released it so soon after the raid, which is in the spring of 2011. I feel like I felt a little guilty even buying the book, but I'm glad I did. It's quite a fascinating book. I don't think there's very much in it that reveals sensitive tactics and methods. There's certainly nothing in there about any classified equipment that they might or might not be using. He didn't even mention the Blackhawks they wrote in there were the ultra secret stealth models. So I would just say to the special ops community, I mean, it's your family. I'm certainly not fit to judge anybody who's part of any of the special ops operations forces in this country. I would say the book will give the reader a positive impression. It's written from the point of view of an enlisted Navy SEAL who's been doing this a long time. I did, as I may have mentioned in another video, spent a couple of weeks working closely with a team of Navy SEALs when I worked on a live fire bombing range and training range in Korea. And the book is consistent with what I observed with the SEALs I had the privilege to work with. They are very quiet Superman kind of guys, not at all Hollywood. What you see, Hollywood SEALs are way better looking. And Hollywood SEALs may have these sculpted, steroid-enhanced bodies, but the real SEALs are tough beyond words. And they're all the special officer forces. I worked with all of them, and I have to say it's a close call. But the SEALs that I worked with, who were reservists, not even full time, were pretty near the top of the heap of the special forces that I got to observe. Mr. Owen starts with talking about how he became a SEAL. He got interested to it after reading a couple of books in junior high. Joined the Navy, got through the BUDS training. He doesn't talk a lot about the initial BUDS training, probably because that's been pretty well covered. There's been TV shows about it. We all know that. Anybody who's been interested in this know that it's like an 80, 90, 95% washout rate for that school. And even to get into the school, you have to pass a very difficult entrance exam just to show up on day one. And then, 90% or roughly of the people, or I don't know the exact percentage, but it's very high. Well over half the people who try to take that course have to drop out, or they get injured or even killed. What I didn't know, I did know that the way the SEAL teams are organized, there's an East Coast and a West Coast team, and then there's this famous SEAL Team 6, which many years ago changed its name to DevGru, Development Group. And I had thought that was something like the Air Force's Fighter Weapons School or the Navy's Top Gun School. I thought that was mainly a training and tactics unit, which I guess is an important part of their mission, but I did not realize that, now there's a cruiser guy who's not a jerk. I did not realize that DevGru was an actual combat ready unit in and of itself, and it consists of the best SEALs that they can find within the ranks of the SEAL community as a whole. So really the interesting part of the book starts with I didn't know that to be in DevGru you have to be an experienced SEAL to begin with, and then you have to take a qualification test and training course that's so difficult that a lot of Navy SEALs fail it, and that's almost unimaginable that there could be anything so tough that not all the SEALs could get through it, but apparently that's the case. Mr. Owen did participated in a lot of combat, and particularly in Afghanistan. He also participated in the raid to rescue the captain of the Marsac, Alabama, that ship that was hijacked by pirates, and the pirates kidnapped the captain of the ship. He actually was part of the team that parachuted into the Indian Ocean and boarded the U.S. Navy craft who were shadowing the lifeboat where the bad guys were trying to abscond with our captain, our American merchant captain. He didn't pull the trigger apparently on that, but was involved in it and talks about it, and that was quite fascinating. That was a nice bonus in the book. So about the third way through the book, after he's giving you background on what it's like to be a SEAL, kind of what their tactics, some of the stuff about their equipment. Let me say about the equipment. SEALs have lots of wonderful toys, and a lot of them they don't want to talk about, and he doesn't talk about them in this book. He talks about flashlights, Gerber tools, sledgehammers. He talks about their 6-hour pistols and HK9 machine guns that they carry, silenced. But he doesn't. He talks a little about their night vision goggles, but he doesn't go into a lot of detail. Nothing, I think, that hasn't been easily shown in open source, such as the recent movie they made about the SEALs, Act of Valor, which was made with cooperation of the Navy SEALs. So let me say again, I don't believe that there's one section that involves the Air Force where he describes cooperation between the SEALs and the Air Force that, while not exactly classified, I kind of wish he'd have glossed over a little more, but nothing major. So he talks about how he's back in Virginia Beach as part of the development group, Dev Group, and I thought it was one funny little incident. He has a guy who mows the lawn for him, because those guys travel all the time, even when they're not deployed overseas. They're always going somewhere to travel, to train, or participate in exercises and stuff. So he has a guy who mows his lawn. So he's talking to the guy, he's home, and he's talking to the lawn mowing guy. The lawn mowing guy says, "Hey, I mow the lawn for your squadron commander, and there's something up in y'all's squadron, because he's been in D.C. for weeks. Hardly ever comes home. I think something's up. You guys up to something?" And Mr. Owen, of course, didn't know that anything particular was up at that point. That's the first he got an inkling that something was going on. So they talk about how the SEALs were brought into the training for this specific raid, how they built. Bin Laden was holed up in a walled compound in the city of Abbottabad in Pakistan, in a high-altitude resort area of Pakistan, sort of like maybe Colorado Springs or somewhere like that. A little bit, place a little bit cooler, a little bit nicer, pretty affluent. And he just for 5 or 6 years, just holed up in this house. He didn't go in or out. He didn't have internet. He didn't have a telephone in there. He just communicated through a couple of couriers. And the American intelligence had finally identified these couriers, and were pretty confident that bin Laden was in this house. And the next book review I give has more information about how they discovered this house. So Mr. Owen, there is told that there's a high probability that bin Laden is in this house, and they build a model of it. They don't know what's in the interior of the compound is like. It actually consists of a big building, a guest house, and some farm structures and some other things. High walls, 18-foot walls around it. So basically, they rehearse this raid and deploy over to Afghanistan. They're given the green light by the president, and off they go. His position was in the first helicopter that was going to land in the kind of the front yard of the walled-in compound. And as the helicopter got down level with the top of the wall, their simulation they'd built a replica of the house out in some training area, but the wall was simulated by a chain link fence, whereas the real wall is like, if you've ever traveled in the Far East or Middle East, they build the buildings out of concrete blocks and plaster them over. Well, this is concrete block walls, 18 feet high. As soon as the helicopter rotor system started to enter the level of the top of the wall reflected back the moving air, that the helicopter pushes air down to try to stay in the air. It kind of beats air down, and the earth rejects the helicopter. And well, when you come near a wall like that and it's hot and high altitude, it disrupts the lift in the rotor blades, and the helicopter just, instead of landing in the compound, it fell into the compound. And he spends a lot of time talking about what it was like to crash in that helicopter. There's a thing that people in emergency situations have called tachypsychia, where events slow down, where events that only take a few seconds, your mind just goes into overclocked mode, and you perceive things at a much higher data rate than your normal thinking. So anyway, he describes this crash. He does mention that a lot of SEALs die in helicopter crashes. When I was stationed at Fort Hood as an Air Force liaison officer, there were lots of fatal helicopter crashes. There was one, couple every year at least, sometimes more. And we're talking, Central Texas, where nobody's shooting back at you. Helicopters are very dangerous. My own brother was a helicopter pilot in the Army. He crashed, flew into wires once and crashed. Was hurt pretty bad. But fortunately, nobody was seriously injured in this crash, and the SEALs jumped out of the crashed helicopter and went about securing the compound and eventually killing bin Laden. It's fascinating. He gives a kind of literally a blow-by-blow account of how the raid goes down. I'm not going to try to repeat it. I'd recommend you read the book to see how it went down. It was very carefully choreographed. Up to the time Mr. Owen was kind of disappointed in Osama. The courier, this fellow named Al-Kuwaiti, who was the courier, who was the link that led the American intelligence to the bin Laden compound, did apparently fight back. I've seen different accounts in the paper, but Mr. Owen says he definitely fired back when the SEALs kicked down the door. He lived in a guest house separate from the main house. He shot back, and Owen respected him more for that. Of course, he got killed right away, because you just don't shoot at SEALs. Just trust me, don't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't shoot at the SEAL. Osama just kind of ran, just kind of retreated, and he got shot through the eye. And they emphasized it wasn't an assassination mission, but Osama had to clearly surrender. The way, he doesn't quite say it, but basically what he was told by the State Department and White House lawyers apparently was, if he just surrenders, if he just stands up, raises his hand, says, "I surrender," then they would take him alive. But if he did anything potentially dangerous, then they would shoot him. Now remember, this is not the first rodeo for these guys. These guys have been raiding compounds like this and arresting and killing high-value terrorist targets for years. For 10 years they've been doing it, ever since 9/11. So the actual raid itself was something they'd done before. I mean, this building was a little bit more of, I think, a monumental structure than maybe what they were used to, but they had cases where people had detonated suicide vests in front of them, where they concealed bombs when they're in the booby-trapped buildings and stuff. So I don't blame them. Osama killed or organized the killing of over 3,000 Americans. If he wants to surrender, all he had to do was call information, get the number of the White House, and call up and say, "Hey, I'm here in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Here's my address. I want to surrender. Just send somebody out to pick me up." He had the option to do that right up until he heard them knocking at the door, blowing his door off the hinges. Even then, he could have surrendered, but instead he retreated back into his bedroom. His wife jumped in front of him and got shot in the leg, and he got shot in the eye. So he had his chance. It's a good book. I highly recommend it. Again, if you're a special operator, it's a family thing between you and Mr. Owen / Mr. Bissonnette as to how you're going to treat him. But don't be too hard. My feeling is that this is a positive book for the special operations community. My feeling is that, yes, SEALs aren't supposed to talk about themselves, but while he was writing his book, There was a Hollywood movie that starred the SEALs. So I personally am not fit to judge. Hey, hi, Sheriff. A lot of times he's on this road. Look, I'm going 40 miles an hour, Sheriff. I'm not fit to judge the special ops community. They exist at a plane far above me. But I would just say, as just a mere Air Force navigator, ex-retired, this book is not all bad. It gives the side of the story that would not have come out otherwise. So, the book is No Easy Day. The author on the cover is Mr Owen. His real name was Matt Bissonnette. And I recommend it. This is Jim on Nameless Road near Leander, Texas.